In restaurants, there's another pattern you start to notice after a while. Some guests don't hesitate because they're indecisive. They hesitate because they're careful. You can usually spot them early. They're reading closely. They're scanning the fine print. They've slowed down not to browse, but to assess. It's not hunger, it's not excitement, it's caution. And you can almost hear the thought, okay, what here is safe for me? Restrictions don't always mean allergies. Sometimes it's just a dietary preference. Sometimes it's medical. Sometimes it's just personal. I just don't like onions. Like me, eggplant. Just can't do it. Don't care how it's prepared, I just can't do eggplant. Whether it's dietary or medical or personal or allergies, the behavior is pretty much the same. These guests are trying to avoid a bad outcome in a place where they don't control the kitchen. And that changes how they order. They're not choosing what sounds best. They're choosing what feels safest. You can almost see the calculation happening. Is this safe? Is this worth asking about? What can I figure out on my own? Do I trust the answer I'm about to get? And when the answers aren't clear, people don't gamble. They simplify. They avoid. They default to something they've had before. Not because they want less food or don't want to try new items, but because oftentimes certainty matters more than variety. You've heard these conversations thousands of times, sometimes quietly at the table. Do you think this has dairy? I think this might be gluten-free. Maybe I should just get the salad. Then eventually, out loud, sorry, does this have nuts? Can this be made without cheese? I have a shellfish allergy. Is this safe? And the tone seems to almost always be apologetic. Why do we want guests to feel like that? It's not because they're unsure, but because they're uncomfortable. Because they're asking people to bridge gaps the menu didn't cover. When menus don't answer those questions, the pressure moves to the staff. Good servers slow down, and you'll hear things like, "That's okay, let me double check that for you. I think it's okay, but let me make sure. I'll go ask the kitchen." It's not because the staff doesn't know the menu, but because guessing isn't acceptable when someone's health is involved. And oftentimes, when somebody's really craving something good, they come out just the way they like it. And once again, the server leaves the table, the kitchen gets interrupted, and the flow stops. Also, everyone can feel safe, and so we can make the guest happy. And from the outside, this can just look like a preference. But from the inside, it's risk management. Guests with restrictions aren't being difficult, they're being cautious in an environment where caution makes sense. Anyone who's worked the floor has seen that play out. And here's what I've watched happen over and over again. When the guest feels uncertain, they simplify. I'll just have this salad with the dressing on the side. Oh, we're not going to get any of these appetizers. I think we're just going to have entrees. I don't want to mess up the kitchen. We'll just get it how it comes. They basically just default to the safe option. Not because they want less food, but because the menu made confidence expensive. So yes, guests with restrictions order less. Not because of the appetite, but because of friction. There's also a social cost. Nobody wants to be the reason that the table waits. No one wants to feel like the difficult one. So instead of asking the 5 questions they really want to, they just ask 1 or none. And then they order something that they didn't really want. That's not a hospitality win. That's a quiet compromise. Now imagine that same guest where the menu answers the questions that they want to ask before they ask. And they can see what contains allergens, what doesn't contain allergens, what can be removed. If they don't want a particular ingredient or allergen, how can they order an item to make it that way? What's safe for them? They don't need reassurance. They don't need to flag someone down. They look up and say, yeah, this is for me. And the server doesn't have to play defense. When guests order confidently, tables move faster. The staff answers fewer questions. Kitchens get fewer interruptions. The number of mistakes drops, and overall satisfaction rises. Not just for the guests, but for the employees too. All because the menu carried its share of the load. Guests with restrictions aren't asking for special treatment. In fact, they don't want it. They just want what everybody else wants. They want to get what they want. All they're asking for is clarity. And when the menus don't provide it, people compensate, guests and staff alike. But when clarity lives at the menu level, everyone breathes easier. And that's when ordering feels like hospitality again, not a negotiation.